Throughout history, empires have risen and fallen, but one thing remains constant: the brutal methods they used to execute those they saw as enemies or traitors. From the Roman Empire to the Aztec civilization, the methods of execution were not just about death. They were about sending a message, instilling fear, and showcasing power. How did these ancient empires choose to punish their enemies, and what made these methods so terrifyingly unique? Let's take a chilling journey through the most infamous execution methods across the great empires in history. The Roman Empire was renowned for its sophistication, but it was equally notorious for its cruelty. One of the most feared methods of execution was crucifixion, a slow, agonizing death that was meant not just to kill, but to humiliate. Criminals, slaves, and rebels like Spartacus were nailed or tied to crosses, left to die in full public view. This wasn't just an execution, it was a gruesome display, a reminder to anyone who dared to defy Roman law. But the Romans didn't stop there. They turned executions into public entertainment. The Colosseum, known for its gladiatorial battles, also hosted savage executions. Victims were fed to wild animals, burned alive, or forced to fight until death. This was more than punishment. It was a spectacle of fear, a performance for the masses. In the Byzantine Empire, cruelty took on an inventive form. One of the most infamous devices was the brazen bull, a hollow bronze statue in which the condemned were placed. A fire would be lit beneath the bull, slowly roasting the victim alive. To make the process even more horrifying, the bull was designed to amplify the victim's screams, making them sound like the bellowing of an animal. While Byzantine methods were designed for psychological terror, they were also an extension of Roman legacy, emphasizing the empire's dominion over life and death. The spectacle wasn't just about death, it was about making a point, one that echoed through the streets of Constantinople. The Mongol Empire, led by Genghis Khan, was feared not just for its military prowess, but for its ruthless approach to execution. The Mongols believed in swift, efficient, and brutal methods to eliminate enemies. One of the most terrifying was death by suffocation. For prisoners of war, especially those of royal blood, the Mongols would crush their victims beneath wooden boards, ensuring no blood was spilled, in accordance with their belief in keeping royal blood untainted. But what truly made the Mongols feared was their sheer scale of execution. Cities that resisted Mongol rule were often completely obliterated, with survivors executed en masse. Their goal was simple: instill fear so great that resistance became unthinkable. In the Americas, the Aztec Empire had its own form of terrifying execution, ritual sacrifice. But this wasn't just a punishment, it was a religious offering to their gods. The most common method was the heart extraction. Victims, often prisoners of war, were laid atop temples, and with a swift cut their hearts were removed and offered to the gods, still beating. These sacrifices were a central part of Aztec culture and religion. Thousands could be sacrificed at once, especially during times of crisis or celebration. To the Aztecs, these sacrifices were necessary to keep the universe in balance. But to their enemies, it was a horrifying fate that awaited those who fell into Aztec hands. During the reign of the Ottoman Empire, particularly under rulers like Vlad the Impaler, whose region bordered the Ottoman Empire, execution methods reached new levels of horror. Impalement became a common form of execution. Victims were skewered on large stakes, sometimes left alive for days, their suffering on full display. This form of execution was not just about pain, it was a psychological tool of war. By displaying victims in such a manner, it sent a message to potential rebels or enemies: defy the Ottoman rule and you would meet a gruesome end. In the era of the Spanish Inquisition, executions took a dark and religious turn. The most infamous method, burning at the stake. Heretics, or those accused of practicing forbidden religions, were tied to posts and set alight. The fire represented not just punishment, but purification of the soul. Torture was often employed to extract confessions before the execution. The rack, thumbscrews, and other implements were used to break both the body and spirit of the condemned before they were finally led to their fiery deaths. During the height of the British Empire, treason was punished with the gruesome fate of hanging, drawing, and quartering. This medieval form of execution was particularly brutal. The condemned would first be hanged but cut down before death. Then they were drawn or disemboweled, and finally their body was quartered and displayed as a warning to others. This method was used to enforce loyalty to the crown, and its graphic nature ensured that treason would not be taken lightly. Across time and empires, methods of execution evolved, each one a reflection of the culture, beliefs, and fears of the ruling powers. From public spectacles to religious rituals, the ways in which societies chose to punish their enemies reveal the darker side of history. Each method served not just as a form of death, but as a message, a statement of power, control, and fear. Want to learn about the largest military gamble in history? Watch our next video, Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history, to discover how Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union led to one of the most brutal campaigns of World War II.